So what do you think? This or this? My answer might surprise you. In this episode of Tech and Topo, we're exploring one of the best ways to learn and improve our daily lives. Many of us love a good book in our EDC loadout, and we can agree it's powerful. But these days, we can choose how we ingest that knowledge. On a page, in a screen, or even through dictation. Question is, are there benefits to staying analog, embracing digital, or even taking an entirely different route? What works best, how I personally navigate this, and how can you make the best decision for your workflow, your loadout, and your purpose? We're getting into all that right now. What's up, y'all? Ron Kwok here, and welcome back to the channel and another episode of Tech and Topo, where we discuss the intersections of digital and analog in an ever-increasing world of technology and gear available to us for our everyday carry. Now, I'm gonna come right out and say I don't do nearly as much reading as I'd like to. So it's a personal goal of mine for the upcoming year, 2023, to do more reading and to work on that habit of staying consistent, always learning more, and of course, incorporating a book in some shape or form into my EDC loadout. Now, you could say that this video has come at a great time because, it's the end of the year, we're thinking about our resolutions, how we want to improve ourselves. Hopefully you guys find this extra useful in formulating your New Year's resolutions and what you want to do with your goals in the year ahead. As far back as I can remember, a book is a book. It's got two covers, a bunch of pages in between, and you feel everything as you're flipping through this book. You flip through each page to get through your story from A to Z, from beginning to end. If you want to annotate, you've got bookmarks, post-its, stickies, and of course, the good old-fashioned highlighter. In terms of interface, reading a book is purely analog. You grabbed your book, a nice cup of coffee, and cozy up in your favorite lounge chair. Make sure you have adequate lighting and crack into it. As far as price goes, I picked this one up for $17 USD. Books range anywhere from free, if you're a member of your local library, all the way up to several $100s for collector's edition books and anywhere in between. But a general rule of thumb, between $15 and $30 USD. Let's talk about the inefficiencies or the detriments of reading a book analog style. First and foremost, annotation is kind of clunky. First of all, it's permanent. If you use a highlighter and you're going through the pages and marking stuff up, that's permanent. You can't take that back. You can't erase it, undo it. The only thing I can think of is you underline with a pencil, but I feel like that doesn't really pop out as much when you're flipping through the pages. So it's a highlighter for me, but if I do that, it's a one-time deal. Also, there's no real way of cataloging the annotations that I've made here other than taking separate notes in a separate notebook with a pen. If I wanted to find a specific annotation in here, I'd probably have to flip through a dozen of them before I found the right one. And even at that point, there's no guarantee that that's the one you're looking for. So there are better ways to handle that these days with the technology that's available to us, which we'll get into in a little bit. Buying a book is a little more expensive than some of the other options we'll talk about today, only because you're not just buying the book, but you're also buying the overhead for the covers, the pages, the printing process, the inking, the overall publishing of this book. Needless to say, there are other avenues that you could explore that might get you a little more knowledge for your book. Let's talk about the size for a second. This isn't too thick, it's about an inch thick, but it's a pretty big book, and it's about the size of an iPad, and unless you're carrying a backpack or putting this thing into a larger backpack or bag or tote, this definitely won't fit into my sling, and it definitely won't fit in my pockets. So not the most slim or minimal footprint with analog style books. All right, now that it sounds like I'm never gonna pick up another book again, let's talk about a more digital way we can digest books. The device that comes to mind, the Amazon Kindle. The Kindle is a digital device or an e-reader. Wow, when's the last time you called anything an e-reader? But it's a digital device that's supposed to emulate reading a book. You acquire or buy digital versions of your books, download them onto the reader, and theoretically, you can have thousands and thousands of your books here with you conveniently. And it's just like reading a book, but with a few added conveniences. A few things I've learned about the Kindle over the course of my time using it is that the book to weight ratio on this thing is huge. If you have thousands and thousands of books in here, Form factor stays the same, slim, easy to pocket, easy to put away into any sling or backpack, and it goes with you wherever adventure decides to take you, and it's just this little thing. Also, there's non-permanent annotation, so you can highlight as much stuff as you want. If you messed up, you can delete that annotation and re-highlight. You can mark anything, bookmark anything, and the beauty of that in a digital form is that you can search through those annotations. Let's say you remembered an idea from a book you read in the Kindle, you can start searching keywords or topics and begin to narrow down that pool of annotations, so it saves you time when you decide to loop back to that idea at a later date. Another really cool thing about having a digital interface is that you can adjust the text and the size, the brightness. You don't have to worry about lighting so much, it's backlit. If there's a really awesome book that you wanted to read but it was published with really small font and you struggle with that, that's not a problem with this. You get the digital version of that book, download it on here, and you can adjust text size, font size on the fly. A lot easier to manage when you're trying to read that book of yours. Of course, the interface is digital, so there are a few things that come along with that. You can either sync it to your computer and download the books from there, or in the case of the Amazon Kindle, you can also make purchases directly from the Kindle interface and just download the books through the cloud that way. Instead of flipping through pages, you're swiping. Small things like that that kind of change the way you interact with this type of book. Now, with all the ease that this piece of technology brings, there are gonna be some drawbacks. Now, inherently, because this is a tech device, it's gonna run out of juice. And if you're on a long camping trip and you didn't top this thing off beforehand, no way to charge it, you're out of luck. Another thing to note is screen fatigue. You know, if you're looking at a backlit screen, blue screen for a long time, you'll experience fatigue, strain in your eyes, all that good stuff. So that's another thing to consider. Another thing we gotta deal with is marketing. Now, I know y'all's favorite thing to deal with tech and apps and all that, are the ads. So this model will display the occasional ad. You can buy a more expensive Amazon Kindle that eliminates ads, but for the base model, they're gonna run ads on you. And then there's that unique, can't really describe it, feeling of unplugging from being online, cracking open a book and flipping through that book page by page as you read your story. The weightiness of the book, the texture of the ink and the pages as you're flipping through, there's nothing quite like it. And for some, that might be just fine, but for others, that may be a deal breaker. As far as price goes, this is tech, so you're gonna have to pay for the hardware as well as the software. Hardware being the reader and software being the digital ebooks. Now for this is the previous generation Kindle Paperwhite. You can get it for $89.99, but the price can go all the way up to almost $400 depending on what type of features you get. You can get one that has colors. You can get one that doesn't have any ads running on it. You can even get one, it's called Kindle Scribe, I think, that you can take notes and it's supposed to emulate an actual paper. So it's like reading and writing on a piece of paper. So that way you get as close to an analog book as you possibly can without sacrificing any of the added convenience and benefit of having a digital reader. Now with your software or ebooks, there's a ton of different ebooks out there for a ton of different prices, but long story short, the average cost for a Kindle ebook in 2022 was about $11. Alternatively, because it is software, there's a subscription model, of course. It's called Kindle Unlimited, I believe. I'm not a personal subscriber of Kindle Unlimited at the time of this recording, but it's a subscription model and you get access to a huge curated library of either ever expanding or rotating titles. So you get access to all that. I think there's a 2-month free trial as well. And with this device, you can tap into all that for $10 a month. Now, surprisingly enough, there's a third way you can ingest books and gain knowledge, and that's through audiobooks. Unsurprisingly enough, it's also affiliated to Amazon. But audiobooks are a third way you can enjoy books. Basically, it takes a book and turns it into audio form. Great narrator like Morgan Freeman, and he reads that book back to you and you listen to him do it. So you don't have to use your hands, you don't have to use your eyes, you can just multitask, do other things, be more productive. You can either buy individual audiobooks and download them and listen to them however you want, or you can subscribe to yet another subscription service. This one's called Audible, that provides you access to a huge library of audiobooks. I believe it's $15 a month standard, but I think they have a promotion right now. It's 4 months at $5.95 a month. Just saw that looking it up right now. Again, just gotta keep it real with y'all. I'm not a paying member or subscriber of Audible at this time, nor is Amazon sponsoring this video. But I am an Amazon affiliate, so affiliate links will be linked below. I just thought I would cover Audible and Kindle Unlimited because those are two of the biggest mainstream ways that you can get audiobooks and ebooks at this point in time. As far as interface goes, audiobooks are also digital, but the beauty here is you don't need a dedicated piece of hardware to get the most out of your audiobooks or Audible. All you need is something to download the goods onto and start listening. It could be your smartphone and headphones, it could be your computer, it could be your laptop. If your car is linked to your smartphone via iCarPlay or auxiliary cable, you can listen to your audiobooks there as well. Now with audiobooks comes some drawbacks as well. Now some might say that this is borderline not even reading anymore. You're just listening to someone talk. They're dictating a book back to you, so you may not retain as much information as if you were actively reading. Now I know this will depend on genre. For example, if you're listening to an audiobook of fantasy or some robotic, dystopian, post-apocalyptic sci-fi, something I love to read, it might not matter as much because you're just listening to good storytelling. If that's the case, you do you. But if you're listening to something more productive like self-improvement or something that might benefit from actively reading, highlighting, bookmark. Oh, that's another thing too. You can't annotate an audiobook. You can't just say, Alexa, bookmark this for later.
Sorry, bookmarks are not supported yet.
Okay. See, exactly. She said it. You heard it from her. Bookmarks aren't supported yet. So there's that too. You can't annotate that book. So depending on what you're reading, if it's not applicable to how audiobooks are set up, might not be the best move for you. Now that you have a little more background on the variety of analog and digital interfaces in enjoying a book, let's talk a little bit more about my EDC journey in trying to read more, learn more, and how you might be able to apply some of those lessons I learned into your own EDC loadout. First up, I'm a tech head. I love seeing how technological advancements can improve your workflow, your productivity, how it can make things more efficient, making things less about doing things manually and by hand, and seeing what you can automate, what you can streamline to, free your mind to focus on other things. And to that end, I very much enjoy the Kindle. It's really convenient. I can have dozens of titles on here at a time and not even worry about it. I'm not lugging dozens of books in my book bag. The annotation is crazy. I don't really like marking up my books all that much because I know it's permanent. If I don't mess it up, then what am I gonna do? So I stick little stickies in there because you can remove them. But with a Kindle, you can highlight all you want. You can highlight and annotate things on here and you can look back and search through and kind of sort things, and it's just a whole ton of organizational streamlining. But I did mention earlier that reading an analog book is almost meditative. It's that deliberate, intentional act of taking a book, flipping through the pages, unplugging from social media and online and all that digital stuff, and just relaxing to a nice book. I think that kind of really resets me when I need it, and I find that I'm, plugged in too often. I feel like there has to be a boundary that I need to make sure I take care of between work and play and just staying healthy physically, mentally, and all that stuff. So reading an analog book goes a long way towards that goal. Then there's the dad aspect, the parental aspect of all this. A lot of us have different stances on how we want to raise our children, and one of those topics is when to get them started on screen time. When do we expose them to the iPads, the TVs, the smartphones? Also, how early do we want to get them started on books? There's a lot of intellectual benefits to be had when you get them started early. So how do we navigate all this on this topic of books and digital and analog? Well, for me personally, I think that although Kindles are efficient for us adults and we find a lot of, benefits in productivity and streamlining our workflows, I think at the end of the day, when kids see us on our e-readers or on our Kindles, all they see is that we're on another device, with a screen. And so they can't tell if we're being productive or just screwing around on social media. I think the benefit of having analog books and reading analog books around our little ones is that there's that added benefit that they see us being deliberate. They see us being intentional. They know that, we're reading a book, we're being productive, we're learning, and that kind of sets the tone and the example for them to follow suit. And I think that when the time comes to get a little older, that's when we introduce the more efficient technologies. They may not be ready for the tech just yet, but they will be one day. Crawl before you walk, walk before you run. Huge disclaimer that this is a personal choice I've made on how I want to raise my kids. You are absolutely free to live your purpose, do you, and raise and guide your kids however you see fit. Hope this helps. This debate between analog and digital methods of reading a book is complicated and not easily answered with a black or white answer. But y'all have to see where this all started with Tech and Topo episode 1, where I discuss whether or not a smartphone deserves a spot in your everyday carry. Does it even count? Is it assumed that it's part of your loadout? Get to the bottom of it with this video right here. Big thanks to all of you who've gotten this far. I really appreciate your support. I hope you guys are enjoying the everyday carry content and those specific relevant topics that we experience on a personal level, like this never-ending debate between analog and digital. I'll see you here next. Live with purpose. Peace.